Wasi Safi joined the elite Afghan commandos because he believed in the vision that the United States showed him for Afghanistan. One where his people were free, women had rights, and opportunity was available for all, regardless of their birthright. His brother, Sami, had been an interpreter for the United States military since 2015 and had just become a U.S. citizen living in Houston. And then the United States left Afghanistan and his entire world turned upside down. He went into hiding as Taliban revenge killings grew rampant, something that I and all the veterans that have been trying to help Afghans for the last year and a half are all too familiar with. As every once in a while, the WhatsApp channels we have used with Afghans we are trying to help comes back with a picture of that very Afghan dead. A little gift that the Taliban enjoy giving when they find people who have been talking to Americans. Abdul tried for months to get an SIV visa through the normal legal process. He realized that that system was broken and that he'd never receive one, or that he'd received one well after his murder by the Taliban's hands, and he made a choice. He'd travel to the United States and claim asylum. So Abdul went on a harrowing journey, traversing some 12,000 miles across the globe, which ultimately ended as he walked up to the Texas border with men and women from Mexico, Central, and South America. All were detained, while the others, who had done no work with the United States, who did not have a U.S. citizen as a brother, who had not risked their lives for our vision of Afghanistan, were released into the United States pending their hearings. Abdul was arrested, wrapped in convict orange, and was told he'd likely be returned to Afghanistan, where he will be tortured and killed. What is wrong with us? Honest to God, what is wrong with us? We are supposed to be the good guys. We are supposed to fight for what is right. I guarantee there's not a single person who joined the military, raised their right hand, and swore an oath to the nation and the Constitution with the intention of making promises we would not keep and then abandoning our friends. I guarantee there is not a kid in grade school looking at the American flag and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance that is envisioning abandoning an innocent man to die a horrible death. I guarantee that if that man was standing in front of you and you had the choice to let him live or send him to death with just your decision, that you wouldn't save him. So why are we here? What is wrong with us? This situation is wrong. For the last few years, I have watched our 435 members of the House, our 100 members of the Senate, and our presidents spend a lot of time arguing. They've argued for their side, whatever that means. They've argued against their side. They've made sound bites. They've given speeches. They're comfortable with outrageous rhetoric about a pending civil war or the potential end of democracy. But man, I sure haven't heard a lot of arguments about doing what's right. And in case you think Abdul is an isolated incident, you may not realize that without the Afghan Adjustment Act, many of the men, women, and children that so many of our troops and veterans risked their lives to save last August might face the same deportation that Abdul faces. Their pathway to residency is not guaranteed. How is that right? We need to demand that Congress does what's right. We need to demand that Abdul Wasi Safi is given asylum and that pending a full vetting process, he is afforded the right to be a resident. We need to demand that this administration prioritizes Afghan SIVs and that they promptly have an opportunity to at least move to a third country while they receive a full vetting process. We need to demand the passage of the Afghan Adjustment Act. Congress, add whatever you need. More vetting? No problem. More funds? Add them. More whatever? Add it. Do it quickly. Pass the act. It is unconscionable not to. No, more than that. It's downright evil. Seeing the fall of Kabul is one of the worst things I've ever seen, but it pales in comparison to what I've witnessed since from our elected officials. We could easily help these refugees. We could easily set up a lily pad location for vetting. We could easily do all of these things, but instead we've become very comfortable leaving this task to underfunded NGOs, knowing they will ultimately fail at their mission, knowing these men and women will be abandoned, knowing that America's memory tends to be short. Well, it isn't for your veterans and the men and women adjacent to them. They know what you did. They know what you're doing. And it is wrong at every single level. Since I've been involved in this mission, I've had a lot of angry calls from people involved. A PJ that gave far more than I ever will to the nation who can't get the visions of Kabul out of his head. An Ivy League woman affiliated with the State Department that feels like maybe our mission might have hurt hers. Afghans who can't get anyone from our government to care, so they yell at us in the NGO space for not doing enough because we are all they have. They're not angry at me or my teammates or any of the other teams. Not really. They're angry at you, but they believe you don't care. They believe that our government, from the newest congressional staffer to the president and everyone in between, doesn't care about them. I want to tell them they're wrong. I want to tell them there's a path forward. I want to believe in you too, even though at 45 years old, it's getting harder and harder to do so. And so here we are looking at one man, Abdul Wasi Safi. Are you going to save him, or are you, Congress, going to murder him? And so here we are looking at the men and women so many of your fellow Americans saved in August of 2021. Are you going to pass the Afghan Adjustment Act, or are you going to quietly let them be tossed aside? At some point, you have to do what is right. You have to take a stand and take action. You asked a generation to fight a war for 20 years. Make it mean something. There is no moral reason to not give Abdul the ability to stay here. There is no moral reason to not pass the Afghan Adjustment Act. There is no moral reason to put your head in the sand. Be bold. Do the right thing. Let Abdul stay. Pass the act 435 to 0 in the House and 100 to 0 in the Senate. The United States is supposed to be the good guys. Please, please show that we are. Because it's really starting to feel like we're the bad guys. And none of us signed up for that.